Hi, I'm Lisa Washburn, Associate Professor and Community Health Specialist with the University of Tennessee Extension. I'm part of the Professional Development Team for the Well-Connected Communities Project. I'm pleased to share with you today a training developed to help you understand current exercise recommendations and how to put them into practice. Most Americans know that regular exercise is important for good health. However, most Americans don't meet the minimum recommendations. This means that knowledge of what to do is not translating to adoption of recommended behaviors. In this module, you'll learn about exercise recommendations and the types of exercise needed for functional fitness. Content in this module will help you to understand the difference between physical activity and exercise, and understand how exercise recommendations vary depending on age and condition. You will also learn about the types and amount of exercise needed for good health. You'll have an opportunity to practice some sample exercises and learn about ways to be more active. Regardless of age or ability level, being physically active is one of the most important actions you can take to improve health. Regular exercise reduces risk of obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stroke, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and certain cancers. New evidence shows physical activity has brain health benefits, including improved mental function, reduced risk of depression and anxiety, and improved sleep and quality of life. On the flip side, not getting regular exercise can have big negative health consequences. We will spend the next few minutes discussing sedentary or inactive lifestyles. A sedentary lifestyle, in other words, sitting too much and not being active enough, increases risk of obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stroke, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and certain cancers. Not exercising can also increase feelings of depression and anxiety and increase risk of falls. The more sedentary you are, the greater your health risks. So what does it mean to be sedentary? What images or phrases come to mind when you think of a person who does not get enough exercise? One who does not exercise might be described as a couch potato or sofa spud. You might envision someone spending a lot of time watching TV, on the computer, or playing video games. Some folks are sedentary by virtue of their preferred leisure activities. Others may be considered sedentary because of their occupation. More than 80% of American workers have jobs that are sedentary or require only light activity. An inactive or sedentary lifestyle is one with a lot of sitting or lying down with little to no exercise. The dictionary definition of sedentary is a way of life or work characterized by much sitting and little physical exercise. During our leisure time, we are often sitting while using a computer or other device, watching TV, or playing video games. Many of our jobs have become more sedentary, with long days sitting at a desk. And the way most of us get around involves sitting, in cars, on buses, and on trains. Both for ourselves and others, we need to address the issue of inactivity. Often, we consider whether one exercises and how much to be an individual choice or a personal factor. We might say that the biggest barrier to regular exercise is personal motivation. But, like most health behaviors or health issues, it's not that simple. You may remember the social ecological model from other modules in this Master Volunteer Training series. Let's review this model and how it relates to exercise. Then we will dive into the exercise recommendations. To offer a quick review, The social ecological model provides a framework for thinking about the many influences on health and behavior. Often, these influences interact. The social ecological model suggests that health, or for the focus of this module, physical activity level, is affected by the interaction between the individual, their friends and family, which is referred to as the interpersonal level, the organizations they are part of, such as work sites and faith-based groups, and the community. We are also affected by physical, social, and political environments. So if we simply conclude that meeting exercise recommendations is a factor located in the individual realm, without considering the influence of family and friends, or organizational factors like our workplaces and whether these settings are supportive of physical activity, we miss the big picture. We'll move into exercise recommendations next, then briefly circle back to the social ecological model at the end of this module. Starting in 2008, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. The focus on getting Americans more active is fairly new, considering that guidance on a healthy diet was released from the federal government as early as 1916. You may remember the Basic 7 Food Guide released in the 1940s, or the Basic 4 Food Guide, available in some variation from the 1950s to early 1980s, and the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, intended to inform development of food, nutrition, and health policies and programs at the federal level, has existed for several decades. Exercise guidelines have been released by several groups, including the American College of Sports Medicine and the National Institute on Aging. The second edition of the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans was released in late 2018. Regardless of the organization or government agency publishing exercise recommendations, all are very similar. Americans of all ages need to engage in cardiovascular, strength, and flexibility exercises. The terms physical activity and exercise are often used interchangeably. Is there a difference between physical activity and exercise? The characteristics listed are the same. Can you think of any differences? There are a few key differences. Exercise is intentional. You do it on purpose, and it is performed for an extended period of time. Exercise also improves specific health outcomes. For cardiovascular or endurance exercises, health outcomes can include improved heart health, decreased blood pressure, and increased stamina for activities of daily living. For strength training, outcomes are usually improved strength, increased bone density, and reduced fall risk, among others. Some examples of physical activity as compared to exercise are parking your car further away from the grocery store entrance and pushing a shopping cart through the store. These activities have value and help reduce sedentary time. So, to recap, physical activity refers to any movement that expends energy, which we commonly refer to as calories. Not all physical activity is considered exercise, but all exercise is physical activity. Exercise is a form of physical activity that is planned, structured, repetitive, and performed with the goal of improving health or fitness. So, any guesses about the recommendations for adults? Before we review the recommendations, think about your own level of exercise. Do you think your current exercise habits meet the recommended levels? The minimum amount of cardiovascular or aerobic exercise needed each week is 150 minutes if the exercise is moderate in intensity. The recommendation, if exercise reaches the vigorous level, is 75 minutes per week. In essence, 1 minute of vigorous intensity activity is equal to 2 minutes of moderate intensity activity. Previous physical activity guidelines stated activity must be in 10-minute increments to reap health benefits or to count toward the 150-minute minimum. But the 2018 physical activity guidelines state that any amount of physical activity has health benefits. Removing the 10-minute requirement is intended to encourage Americans to move more and sit less throughout the day. Every minute counts. It's important to know that physical activity is cumulative. This means that all your activity throughout the week adds up, and that you can break your activity up into manageable segments. For example, you might take a 10-minute walk in the morning, another walk at lunchtime, and then another after dinner. How many minutes of exercise would that be? It'd be 30 minutes. Or perhaps every hour at work, you get up and you walk around your building for 5 minutes. At the end of an 8-hour day, that would total 40 minutes. You might also consider getting 50 minutes of exercise over 3 days, 30 minutes of exercise over 5 days, or 20 minutes over 7 days. Some people don't have the stamina to exercise for 30 minutes or an hour at a time. They may mistakenly think that you must exercise 30 minutes or an hour for it to be worthwhile, and that's not the case. We need to spread the word that small increments can add up to big health benefits. While the minimum recommendation to reap health benefits of exercise is 150 minutes per week, additional health benefits can be gained from increasing to 300 minutes per week. In general, a person doing moderate intensity aerobic activity can talk but not sing during the activity. A person doing vigorous intensity activity can only say a few words during the activity without having to take a breath. The intensity of an activity is relative and depends on a person's fitness level. Vigorous activities for a person less fit may be only moderate for someone with a higher fitness level. For a person of average fitness, examples of moderate activity include brisk walking, dancing, and household chores like sweeping and mopping or raking leaves. Vigorous intensity activities include running, swimming laps, hiking, carrying heavy groceries upstairs, and shoveling snow. Many adults do no vigorous activity at all. It's important here to make a distinction between light activities, perhaps taking a stroll through the grocery store, cooking, light household chores, and being intentional about reaching the moderate intensity level. Some daily activities could count toward the exercise minimum if intensity were kicked up a notch. This graphic is from the Move Your Way campaign, based on the physical activity guidelines for Americans. It emphasizes personalized, practical strategies people can use to fit more daily activity into their lives. We'll talk more about the specifics of muscle strengthening activity. This graphic shows the recommendations for adults. Those for children and seniors are a bit different. Next, we will discuss special recommendations for exercise depending on one's age and abilities. Let's start at the beginning of the lifespan with recommendations for babies and kids. Even if you plan to work only with adults, we hope that you will also promote good health for your entire community. It's hard to ignore the childhood obesity epidemic currently affecting kids across the nation. We want you to know the recommendations so you can share with others who have kids in their lives. There are no specific recommendations for infants and babies, just that they should not be inactive for prolonged periods unless they are sleeping. Preschool age children, those between 3 and 5 years of age, should be physically active throughout the day to enhance growth and development. Adult caregivers can encourage active play in structured activities like throwing games or riding a bicycle or tricycle. Children of this age need bone-strengthening activities too, like hopping, skipping, and jumping. Aim for 3 hours per day for all levels of intensity, light, moderate, or vigorous for this age group. Children and adolescents are those between the ages of 6 and 17 years. This age group needs 60 minutes or more exercise every day. Exercise should be mostly moderate or vigorous intensity aerobic exercise. Think running, jumping, and playing games that keep the heart rate up. Kids in this group also need to do muscle and bone strengthening activities at least 3 days per week. This does not have to be separate from aerobic exercise. Jumping rope is both aerobic and bone strengthening because it's weight bearing. Muscle strengthening activities can be simple, like playing on a jungle gym or doing yoga. Healthy exercise habits established in childhood and adolescence can persist into adulthood. Providing opportunities and encouragement for youth to participate in age-appropriate, enjoyable activities is important. We have touched on the key physical activity recommendations for adults. To recap, adults should move more and sit less, and some physical activity is better than none. Any amount of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity yields health benefits. For substantial health benefits, adults should aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise each week, or at least 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity. Or you might choose a combination of the two. For example, you might pair 2 15-minute walks, equaling 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity, with 2 25-minute runs, which would equal 50 minutes of vigorous activity. Recall that 1 minute of vigorous activity equals 2 minutes of moderate activity. Together, running and walking for the week adds up to 130 minutes. Then let's say you know you'll spend 20 minutes raking leaves over the weekend. That counts as moderate intensity activity. Altogether, this equals 150 minutes of moderate activity, and you've met the weekly recommendation for aerobic exercise. As we've discussed, 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise is the minimum recommendation. You can enjoy even greater health benefits from accumulating activity beyond 300 minutes each week. That's the equivalent of 5 hours. And remember, short bursts of activity count. In addition to the recommended aerobic activity, adults should also add muscle strengthening or strength training activities to their routines at least twice weekly, engaging all the major muscle groups. These activities should be moderate or greater in intensity. One stereotype of older adults is that one slows down or reduces their physical activity levels as they grow older. It may be accepted as normal that a person is more sedentary as they age, that this slowing down is part of the normal aging process. However, the research does not support this. It is more likely that one slows down as they age because they become less active, not the other way around. Exercise recommendations for senior adults are largely the same as those for non-senior adults. Seniors should shoot for 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity each week, plus strength training at least 2 times each week for all the major muscle groups. In addition to the general recommendations for adults, seniors are encouraged to add balance exercises to their routines. Remember, intensity is relative to fitness level. Older adults should be mindful of their physical activity efforts relative to their fitness levels. Often, older adults have chronic conditions affecting their ability to safely exercise and should consult with their healthcare providers. And if older adults can't engage in 150 weekly minutes of aerobic activity, they should be as active as their abilities and condition allow. Women who are pregnant should be under the care of a healthcare provider and discuss whether they need to adjust their physical activity during and after pregnancy. Unless medical reasons for avoiding physical activity exist, women can begin or continue light to moderate intensity aerobic and muscle strengthening activity. If new to exercise, pregnant women should increase their amount of physical activity gradually over time. After the first trimester, women should avoid doing exercises that involve lying on their back. This position can restrict blood flow to the uterus and fetus. They should also avoid participating in contact sports or those with a risk of falling, like soccer, basketball, horseback riding, and downhill skiing. Those with chronic conditions or disabilities impacting exercise or activity levels should get as much activity as their condition allows. The general recommendations for adults apply here. At least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise accumulated over a week, plus muscle strengthening exercises at least twice a week. Those with chronic conditions need to be under the care of a healthcare provider and should work with their healthcare team to determine types and amount of physical activity appropriate for them. And when possible, people with disabilities should meet the guidelines for their age group, whether adult or older adult. Just like everyone else, those with disabilities should avoid being inactive. Next, we'll take a look at the different types of exercise. 4 types of exercise are recommended for good health and functional fitness: aerobic, muscle strengthening, balance, and flexibility. The next several slides will discuss each of these more in depth, but first, a quick disclaimer. This section contains exercises which may not be appropriate for individuals with unstable medical conditions or serious musculoskeletal problems. Aerobic exercise is often referred to as cardiovascular or endurance exercise. These terms are often used interchangeably. During aerobic exercise, your large muscles move in a rhythmic manner for an extended amount of time. This type of activity causes your heart to beat faster and makes you breathe harder than normal. Moderate and vigorous intensity activity are generally derived from aerobic exercise, although one can increase heart rate while performing other types of exercise. This type of exercise improves heart, lung, and circulatory system health. It also improves stamina for daily activities like walking stairs or carrying heavy groceries. I mentioned earlier that the recommendation for aerobic exercise is 150 minutes of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise. Here are some examples of moderate and vigorous intensity exercises. You may engage in physical activity throughout the day that does not reach the moderate level, and while any activity is better than none, try to up the intensity of these activities, increase your heart rate, so it counts toward the 150-minute minimum. Muscle strengthening exercise is also referred to as strength training, resistance training, and weightlifting. Strength training and resistance training are used interchangeably and aim at increasing muscle strength. This can involve lifting weights, but one can perform strength training using other equipment or one's own body weight. You may be familiar with many of the benefits of muscle strengthening exercises. Strength training can increase muscle mass and strength and help maintain your weight, but it has many other benefits as well. How do you think strength training affects your metabolism? Strength training can increase your metabolism simply because it takes more calories to sustain a pound of muscle than a pound of fat. People with more muscle mass burn more calories even when they aren't exercising. If you gain muscle, you'll need more energy in the form of calories because you'll be burning more. You'll also have increased your metabolism. The effect on weight is closely tied to metabolism. How might strength training help keep blood sugar in check? There's solid research that strength training as little as a couple of times a week can help diabetics improve their hemoglobin A1C numbers. Hemoglobin A1C is a measure of how well blood sugar is controlled over 2 to 3 months. Strength training also helps prevent and treat osteoporosis. The recommendations for strength training are to work all major muscle groups at least 2 times a week with a rest day in between. The major muscle groups are the legs, which includes the hamstrings, quadricep, and calves, the hips, which includes the gluteal muscles, the back, abdomen, chest, shoulders, and arms, which includes the biceps and triceps. The rest day between strength training sessions gives your muscles time to repair and to become stronger. It's okay to do cardio, balance, and flexibility exercises on your strength training rest days. Just make sure to give yourself 1 full rest day each week. Next, we'll look at some sample exercises in each category. Please note that these are just examples, not complete routines. Many other exercise options exist. People should explore different forms of exercise and find something enjoyable that they can stick with. Here's an example of a strength training exercise using dumbbells or hand weights. The overhead press is a shoulder strengthening exercise. Even if you don't have dumbbells, I encourage you to do the exercise as I read the instructions. This exercise can be performed while standing or while seated in a chair. To start, sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, or stand with your feet shoulder width apart and your knees slightly bent. Roll your shoulders down and back away from your ears. Hold a dumbbell in each hand and bring your arms out to the side. Raise your forearms to create a 90-degree angle with your upper arms, sort of like goalposts on a football field. Your upper arm should be parallel to the floor and your palms should be facing forward. Slowly raise both arms straight up over your head, keeping your elbows slightly bent and in line with your body. Pause for a breath at the top and then slowly lower the dumbbells back to the goalpost position. In a regular exercise routine, you would perform 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions or lifts. This exercise is a squat. It is a body weight exercise meant to strengthen the muscles in your legs, primarily your quadriceps or the muscles on the front side of your thigh. If you feel comfortable, I encourage you to try the exercise as I read the instructions aloud. To start, stand with your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart, crossing your arms in front of your chest. If you are unsteady on your feet, lightly rest your hands on the back of a chair for stability. Keeping your chest lifted and your back, neck, and head in line, push your hips and bottom back and bend your knees as if you were going to sit in a chair. If your strength allows, lower until your thighs are nearly parallel to the floor. If you feel pain or discomfort in your lower back, tuck your tailbone under or stand up slightly. Stand up slowly, pushing up from your heels through your lower legs, thighs, hips, and buttocks. Make sure your knees do not go past your toes. If they do, push your hips farther back or stand up slightly. In a regular exercise routine, you would perform 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 squats. Exercises to improve balance are recommended for older adults and can be helpful for those of any age. Balance is your body's stability while standing still or in motion. While balance can be affected by certain disorders such as vertigo, it can also be affected by lifestyle and activity level. Exercises that improve balance can help to strengthen leg, back, and abdomen muscles and improve stability, which can help prevent falls during everyday activities like walking and recreational activities like dancing. Balance exercises, like walking backward or standing on one leg, should be performed at least 2 times a week, but can be performed daily. The stork is a popular balance exercise. A variation of this exercise, for those familiar with yoga, is tree pose. This exercise has 3 levels. Foot placement affects difficulty. If you are able, I encourage you to try the exercise as I read the instructions aloud. You may want to stand near a wall or a table for stability. Level 1 is a great place to start for those unsure of their balance or who have conditions that negatively affect their balance. For level 1, stand with your feet hip-width apart and your knees slightly bent. Raise the heel of your left foot and place it against the inside of your right leg, just above your ankle. This should allow the toes of your left foot to remain on the floor for stability. Turn your left knee out to the side and raise your arms up parallel to the floor. Ideally, you will hold this at least 5 seconds and up to 1 minute, but do what works best for you. Repeat on the other side. If you want to increase the challenge, you can move on to level 2 by sliding the foot of your bent leg up a little higher so that your heel is just below the knee of your standing leg. For an even greater challenge, try level 3 by sliding your foot up even higher so that your toes are just above the knee of your standing leg. For safety reasons, avoid placing your foot directly on your knee. And here's a quick tip for level 3. Engaging the thigh muscles of your standing leg will help keep your foot from sliding down. Regardless of the level you choose, feel free to place a hand on a chair, table, or wall if you need additional support. It can also be helpful to visually focus on a spot on the floor or the wall. This exercise is called the forward toe touch arm reach. It focuses on stability. Once again, if you are able, I encourage you to practice the exercise as I read the instructions. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Raise your hands to your shoulders with your palms facing forward. Extend your right arm and step forward with your left foot, toe pointed down and touching the floor. Return to the starting position. Extend your left arm and step forward with your right foot, toe pointed down, touching the floor. Return to the starting position. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 repetitions on both sides. Flexibility exercises help with ability to move joints through the full range of motion. Each joint has a different maximum range of motion depending on its type and intended function. It is important to be able to move each joint through its full range to make daily life easier and more enjoyable. Stretching exercises help keep your body flexible by stretching the muscles and tissues that support the joints and hold your body's structures in place. Flexibility is an important part of physical fitness with many benefits. When performed after the body is sufficiently warmed up, stretching exercises can help reduce muscle tightness and tension, increase your range of motion, and improve circulation. Freer moving muscles and joints can help prevent injuries and aid in the recovery from current injuries, as well as allow you to maintain good posture and perform daily activities, such as getting dressed and reaching for things on high shelves. Flexibility exercises should be done a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week, but can be performed daily. The cross shoulder stretch is great for your shoulders and upper back. It can be performed sitting or standing. To do the cross shoulder stretch, stand with your feet hip-width apart or sit in a sturdy chair with your back straight and feet flat on the floor. Bring your right arm across your chest. Place your left hand on the right elbow to gently support and ease the right arm closer to your chest. Keep your shoulders relaxed away from your ears. Hold the stretch for 10 to 30 seconds, and then repeat on the opposite side. You may choose to repeat the stretch a second time on both sides. You may find that your range of motion has improved. Just like the name suggests, the quadriceps stretch stretches the quadriceps muscles, which are located on the front side of the thigh. This is also a balance exercise, so feel free to place your free hand on the wall or on a table or chair for stability. Start by standing with your feet shoulder width apart with a slight bend in the knees. Shift your weight to the right leg, then bend the left knee back and draw the foot toward your bottom. Grab your foot with your left hand. If you can't reach your foot, you can use a strap or a towel for assistance. Be sure to keep your left knee pointed toward the floor. Gently pull the leg until you feel a stretch in your thigh. Hold for 10 to 30 seconds and repeat on the opposite side. You may choose to repeat the stretch a second time on both sides, and if you do, you may find that your range of motion has improved. Now that we have reviewed the exercise recommendations, types of exercise, and examples of each, let's circle back to the social ecological model. The Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans offers recommendations for individuals, but the guidelines don't stop there. Recognizing the role of friends and family, organizations, and communities in increasing physical activity, the guidelines offer some strategies to support physical activity beyond the individual level. As an individual, there are many ways you can build moderate intensity activity into your day. Look for opportunities to be active. Take the stairs. Walk if you have the option. Housework, gardening, and yard work are all physical. To increase the intensity, you could try doing them at a more vigorous pace. Keep moving while you watch TV. Lift hand weights, do some gentle yoga stretches, or pedal an exercise bike. Instead of using the TV remote, get up and change the channels yourself. Work out at home with a workout video. Go for a walk in your neighborhood. If you are a social exerciser, it can be more fun if you walk your dog, walk your kids to school, or walk with a friend. Stand up and march in place when talking on the phone. Get some exercise equipment for your home. Less expensive equipment such as yoga balls, exercise mats, stretch bands, and hand weights can help. At the relationship or interpersonal level, support others in being physically active. Suggest going for a walk or taking the stairs. Use the buddy system. Start a walking group. Serve as a peer leader. Guidance from peers is one strategy specifically mentioned in the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans and is a natural fit with the master volunteer concept. At the community level, you can support efforts to make being active easier. Perhaps your group wants to promote safe places for physical activity. If you live in a rural area, maybe you scout out a safe walking path for the community. Nearly every rural community has a cemetery with a gravel or dirt drive for cars to enter and exit. Perhaps the organization overseeing the cemetery would be open to providing access for walkers, and your group could promote availability of this new resource. Possible policy changes include increasing safety for pedestrians and cyclists by adding bike lanes or shared road markings, supporting sidewalk ordinances or passage of complete streets policies. Changes could be as simple as installing a crosswalk near a school so children can walk more safely to school. We all have a role to play in increasing physical activity. We can take steps to increase our own physical activity and increase activity for our loved ones. If you're a parent, do you limit kids' screen time? What about your own? Do we model healthy behaviors like regular exercise? Maybe you're an older adult and you're influencing your kids and your grandkids with your healthy exercise habits. This module covered exercise recommendations, specifically the updated Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, which promote increasing activity in our everyday lives. That means supporting change at the community level so that everyone can move more.